All right, a new creationist cosmology to explain Genesis chapters 1 and 2. And it's not like we made up something new. We actually went back, this Russell Humphreys, Dr. Russell Humphreys, physicist, and he's got a point of view of, let's look at what science has to offer that explains creation in Genesis chapter 1 or not. And he goes back to Einstein. Ever hear of him? Einstein's theory of relativity and gravity-time dilation. What is the effect of gravity upon the passage of time? That's been around, and it's not a religious point of view, it's a scientific point of view. And evolutionist scientists, creationist scientists, and everybody in between, they look at Einstein, and they can't find anything so far that could supplant what he has said. It all makes sense. They've actually had an experiment where they put a clock at the top of a building in Denver and also one in Greenwich, England. And they measured the time dilation based on the effect of gravity, because you have a mile up in Denver and a mile lower than that in Greenwich, England. And there was a time difference in the passage of the identical passage of time from one clock to the next. And it's measurable. You go over the vast distances in the universe, and we now know that if you're sitting in the center of the universe, as if on Earth, which that seems to be a universe-centric body, the Earth, Christ came to the Earth. He didn't come to a planet and many other stars. He came to the Earth, and that alone, evidently, nothing else to say otherwise. And so if the Earth is in the center of the universe, Earth is in the center of the gravitational pull of the universe, and the larger the quantity of gravity, the greater force of gravitational, the less the passage of time goes, so that events that occur at a particular point in the universe, in the sky, someplace on Earth, the closer you are to the center of the Earth, which is Earth, the faster those events will go by, to a dramatic difference. In a matter of minutes, you can see something occur way out in the outer expanses of the universe. But if you're out in the outer expanses of the universe, it goes by, millions of years can go by. Same thing, because the gravitational force overall in the universe is far less than it is on Earth if the Earth is in the center of a contained, finite universe, albeit huge, but finite. So here's a new creationist cosmology that explains some of the things, like how could stars show their light if the Earth and the universe is only centuries old or thousands of years old? How could that be if a star its light took millions of years to get to the Earth? That doesn't make sense, because if the universe is only 5, 6, 7,000 years old or 8,000 years old, the star doesn't exist millions of years ago. So a new creationist cosmology. Nevertheless, the seed decay, the light decay theory, which people have tried to say might be the explanation, stimulated much thinking about the issues. But there was no demonstrable evidence that we could see that would say that the speed of light changed so that things got much slower now than they were before. Light was much, much, much faster in its capacity to travel. Creationist physicist Dr. Russell Humphreys says that he spent a year on and off trying to get the declining theory, C theory, to work, but without success. However, in the process, he was inspired to develop a new creationist cosmology, which appears to solve the problem of the apparent conflict with the Bible's clear, authoritative teaching of a new recent creation. This cosmology is proposed as a creationist alternative to the Big Bang theory. It passed peer review. Of course, right now I have a bunch of women gathering right in front of me, not on the other side of the pond, to blast out this broadcast, but we'll go as far as we can until the noise gets so much. So it passed peer review by qualifying reviewers for the 1994 Pittsburgh International Conference on Creationism. Young Earth creationists have been cautious about the model, which is not surprising with such an apparently radical departure from orthodoxy. But Humphreys has addressed the problems raised. Believers in the old universe and the Big Bang have vigorously opposed the new cosmology and claim to have found flaws in it. However, Humphreys has been able to defend his model as well as develop it further. The debate will no doubt continue. This sort of development, in which one creationist theory, see decay, is overtaken by another, is a healthy aspect of science. The basic biblical framework is non-negotiable as opposed to the changing views and models of fallible people seeking to understand the data within that framework. Evolutionists also often change their ideas on exactly how things have been made themselves, but never whether they did. A clue. Let us briefly give a hint as to how the new cosmology seems to solve the starlight problem before explaining some preliminary items in a little more detail. Consider that the time taken for something to travel a given distance, is the distance divided by the speed it is traveling. That is, time equals divided by speed. Time equals distance divided by speed. When this is applied to light from distant stars, the time calculates out to be millions of years. Some have sought to challenge the distances, but this is a very unlikely answer. Astronomers use many different methods to measure the distances, and no informed creationist astronomer would claim that any errors would be so vast that billions of light years could be reduced to thousands. For example, there is good evidence that our own Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years across. If the speed of light, c, has not changed, the only thing left untouched in the equation is time itself. Nobody's considering that. You have to rule it out. In fact, Einstein's relativity theories have been telling the world for decades that time is not a constant. Two things are believed with experimental support to distort time in relative theory. One is speed, and the other is gravity. Einstein's general theory of relativity, the best theory of gravity we have at present, indicates that gravity distorts time. The effect has been measured experimentally many times. Clocks at the top of all tall buildings, where gravity is slightly less, run faster than those at the bottom, just as predicted by the equations of general relativity. So time takes less time to go across to experience an event when the gravity is greater. When the concentration of matter is very large or dense enough, the gravitational distortion can be so immense that even light cannot escape. It's called a white or a black hole. The equations of general relativity, GR, show that at the invisible boundary surrounding such a concentration of matter, called the event horizon, the point at which light rays trying to escape the enormous pull of gravity and bend back on themselves, time literally stands still. Wow. Using different assumptions, because people, even non-Christian scientists, talk about black holes, how they can't be discerned and measured because the light doesn't emanate from them. They just assume everything around them, and then there's a great nothing there that they can't measure because light's not coming from that area. So Dr. Humphreys' new creationist cosmology literally falls out of the equations of general relativity, GR, so long as one assumes that the universe has a boundary. In other words, that it has a center and an edge, that if you were to travel off into space, you would eventually come to a place beyond which there was no more matter. In this cosmology, the Earth is near the center, as it appears to be as we look out into space and examine the Bible. Again, I said that the Earth seems to be universe-centric according to the Bible. Jesus Christ came to the Earth. He didn't come to some other planet or other place, or a place says. He came right to the planet where the focal point on creation is the Earth. This might sound like common sense, as indeed it is, but all modern secular Big Bang cosmologies deny this. That is, they make arbitrary assumption, without any scientific necessity, that the universe has no boundaries, no edge, and no center. In this assumed universe, every galaxy would be surrounded by galaxies spread evenly in all directions on a large enough scale, and so therefore all the net gravitational forces cancel out. However, if the universe has boundaries, then there is a net gravitational effect toward the center. Clocks at the edge would be running at different rates to clocks on the Earth. In other words, it is no longer enough to say God made the universe in 6 days. He certainly did, but 6 days by which clock? If we say God's time, we miss the point that he is outside of time, seeing the end from the beginning. There appears to be observational evidence that the universe has expanded in the past, supported by the many phrases God uses in the Bible to tell us that at creation He stretched out, other verses say spread out, the heavens. If the universe is not much bigger than we can observe, and if it was only 50 times smaller in the past than it is now, then scientific deduction based on GR means it has to have expanded out of previous state in which it was surrounded by an event horizon, a condition known technically as a white hole, a black hole running in reverse, something permitted by the equations of general relativity. As matter passed out of this event horizon, the horizon itself had to shrink, eventually to nothing, and therefore at one point this Earth, relative to a point far away from it, would have been virtually frozen. An observer on Earth would not in any way feel different. Billions of years would be available in the frame of reference within which it is traveling in deep space, for light to reach the Earth, for stars to age, and so on, while less than one of ordinary days passing on Earth. Many, many, many years pass away in outer space. Further you go, the longer the time. This massive gravitational time dilation would seem to be a scientific inevitability if a bounded universe expanded significantly. In one sense, if observers on Earth at that particular time could have looked out and seen the speed with which light was moving toward them out in space, it would have appeared as if it were traveling many times faster than c. Galaxies would also appear to be rotating faster. However, if an observer in deep space was out there measuring the speed of light, to him it would still only be traveling at c. If you're watching as it goes by, the speed of light is constant. But if you're at a point in the center of gravity of the universe, it appears to be going faster from your frame of reference, because we on Earth don't change our frame of reference in the universe. We're stuck here on Earth. There is more detail of this cosmology at layman's level in the book by D.R. Humphreys, which I would recommend, Starlight and Time. It caters to us people, we people who are not scientists. It gives us an explanation we can understand, but gives us a scientific formula, too, if you're more scientifically bent, which also includes reprints of his technical papers showing the equations, which I look at them and it's dizzy. I majored a little bit in math in college, and when I got to vector algebra, I decided that's not for me. It's too into thinking mathematically, and I wasn't that good at it. It is fortunate creationists did not invent such concepts such as gravitational time dilation, black and white holes, event horizons, and so on. We have evolutionists speak of these things, especially astronomers. So it's not like a Christian idea or invention, or we would likely be accused of manipulating the data to solve the problem. The interesting thing about this cosmology is that it is based upon mathematics and physics totally accepted by all cosmologists, general relativity, and it accepts, along with virtually all physicists, that there has been expansion in the past, though not from some imaginary tiny point. It requires no massaging the results, fall out, so long as one abandons the arbitrary starting point with which the Big Bangers use, the unbounded cosmos idea, which could be called what the experts don't tell you about the Big Bang. This new cosmology seems to explain in one swoop all of the observations used to support the Big Bang, including progressive redshift and the cosmic microwave background radiation, without compromising the data or the biblical record of a young Earth. Isn't that amazing? Scientifically approached, the Bible is supported by science. Approached by preconceived ideas that are assumed to be true, then it doesn't support it, and you end up projecting something that isn't actually scientifically proved out. So, caution. While this is exciting news, all theories of fallible men, no matter how well they seem to fit the data, are subject to revision or abandonment in the light of future discoveries. What we can say is that at this point a plausible mechanism has been demonstrated with considerable observational and theoretical support. What if no one had ever thought of the possibility of gravitational time dilation? Many might have felt forced to agree with those scientists, including some Christians, that there was no possible solution. The vast ages are fact. So it takes millions of years for the light for stars to get to the Earth, considering what we've measured as the speed of light and how far those stars are from us. But the problem